Go.
Welcome, racing fans, to Get Tied On, sponsored by WizardRacingSports.com. And Get Tied On's the title, and we hope you got a seatbelt and a shoulder strap for this show. We've got a lot of good things planned for you. And away we go. In this first segment, we're going to talk about weekly recap, touch on some favorites, track bias, shippers, where are the winners coming from, some hot and cold trainers, and a little bit of scuttlebutt. So, Michael, another week, and it was nuts.
It was. It certainly was. And the weather was kind of unpredictable.
Let's start there, okay? Favorites. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first 7-8 days of this meet, favorites won 46%, 52 out of 112 races. Then came Friday. And by the way, Michael, on Thursday, I was watching them scrape and grade the track.
Right.
So comes Friday to Sunday, we get 32 more races, 8 favorites. The chalk-loving dogs got dusted, and everybody else got well.
Yeah, it really was a crazy week with a lot of late scratches. Saturday, in the middle of the day, there was a monsoon, basically, in the middle of the card. And then I think 3 or 4 turf races, I think the last 3 were taken off. Tons of scratches. You had to adjust on the fly.
I'm unhappy picked 4, picked 5 players.
Yeah, it was really crazy. And then yesterday, it was a beautiful day, but because of the heavy rain on Saturday, they had to take 4 races off the turf.
Yeah, that always hurts everyone because we put in so much work before, and now you have to re-handicap the races. And if the intent of opening up the Wilson chute was to keep more horses in the gate, that ain't working out so well.
No, I mean, it's good that those mile and a 16th races are cut back to a mile, but it's the fields in general have been short.
They've been short. Okay, track bias, Mile. Other than speed, the first 4 races on Friday.
I don't really see a pronounced bias. Right. I think, the inside part of the track yesterday was pretty good early in the program. Horses were coming up the inside. Then towards the middle and latter part of the card, the outside pads were good. But I just don't see any pronounced bias on the dirt or any of both the turf courses.
I wouldn't say pronounced, because I honestly think Glenn Kozak and his crew, when they observe kind of the wrong horses winning, they get out there and they want to level the playing field.
Right.
It took them 4 races on Friday. A lot of those early races were contended paces where the front horses just lasted after banging heads with each other at big numbers.
Right.
Okay, shippers, real simple. Belmont form is holding up better than we thought it could when we opened the show, and we've had 2 runbacks, and they both won.
There hasn't been a lot of shippers that have come in. If you notice, there've been a few Churchill Ellis. Monmouth has had probably, I guess, the most. There haven't been too many Gulfstream. The Maryland Circuit, a few. But overall, there hasn't been a lot. It's been basically New York racing.
I'll give you the numbers. Monmouth has 15 wins.
Not 15 wins here.
15 starters. Excuse me. 15 starters. No, they got 15 wins. I'm counting winners.
Monmouth starters.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Kentucky shippers, both Ellis and Churchill, got 14. Okay? Most of the first-time starters that have been successful have been working over this, either the Maine or the Oklahoma. So spa work seems to be an important thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's generally a race over the track this time of the meet is important, and horses that actually work over especially the deeper training track, and good work there is a plus. Or horses that work on the training track and then sneak in a main track work as their last bullet, their last drill, is really an important angle too.
Now, you said you had some trainers you want to talk about, and then we'll come back to me.
Well, Linda Rice, continues to hold a 2-win edge over Chad Brown. And then Todd Pletcher is 1 behind Chad and 3 behind Rice. The field is caught up to Rice this week. Rice has not had, didn't have the first 2 weeks she was on fire. It slowed down a little bit. She had some horses that were heavy favorites that got beat. Like I said, she has the stock. She has a lot of bullets, but the problem is that she's losing some of these horses to the claim box, and she has to go in and retool and go in with horses to win multiple shakes. So it's going to be interesting if she can keep pace with the dynamos, the 2 dynamos that are right behind her.
So I'm going to talk about trainers not named Rice, Pletcher, or Brown. Rudy Rodriguez, 4 winners this week.
Red hot this week.
Cold as ice, red hot this week. Tom Amos had a couple. Tom Morley and Maggie Wolfendale, they're together, and they got a couple of good ones. John Ortiz hit a rocket. I don't know what that New York Thunder did.
Right.
I think he went 43.
Well, we'll talk about that in the betting,
okay.
in the betting segment.
Yeah.
I just want to say something about Tom Amos.
Yeah.
Both his wins were with first-time
Yes.
starters. Yeah, but one, I just want to tell you, there's an outstanding first-out sire that his record with winning debut runners, 2-year-olds, is unbelievable. It's like over 50%. Omaha Beach.
Yep.
You watch for offspring of Omaha Beach because those horses are coming out running.
Mark Henning had 2, including a $53 bomb. Johnny Terranova and Gatz Staven, Matt Gatz's, that crew. Our Shot, Turf Horse, hounded the entire way. This is a nice turf sprinter they've got.
Yeah, that one was a best bet of mine that day, and
Me too.
And I'm saying this horse is going to get nailed. And at the wire, I love these horses that they pass and they come back with their neck stuck out. And they know where I can't believe that some horses know where the finish line is.
I'm going to say, I always said this about Angel Cordero. I think in this eye he saw the 8th pole and knew it was 27 this ways to have his head down at the water.
Right, yeah.
Cordero knew that. Hit the couple. Last week, you and I were talking about lesser-known trainers, and these guys who have labored in the game for a long time. They love the game. They rarely win a lot of races. They're the 10% or less guys. They're great guys. They're great people to know. Well, I'm going to tell a story. I helped one get a win, and this is how I did it. Trainer Bruce Brown. He's a guy I've met a couple of times. He's been very kind and generous with his time. He's a good man, good trainer, good family man. If you see him around the track, He's with the kids. Well, Bruce Brown was saddling his horse, and he was coming through the paddock, and I quipped at a table to a couple of friends of mine. I says, it's got to be tough. I don't know how some of these guys, now I didn't like his horse in this race at all.
Right.
I said, I don't know how some of these guys do it. I know they're trying to win races. Doesn't he get one at a big number and bust us all out?
Yeah,
Karma.
I just love when these guys, they work so hard. David Donk
Absolutely.
got off the schneid.
Yep.
David Duggan had a nice win. These are guys, I'm in the backstretch almost every day. I know how hard these guys work, and it's so good. Even if I don't pick them, look at Pat Reynolds. He's won his share.
That's right.
And he's winning a whole bunch of these shakes. Like these 10, 20.
Did he hit the Mega Million lottery while you weren't looking?
Probably so, but he wouldn't tell me if he did.
Okay, last note here, a little bit of not scuttlebutt and whispers, but last week was the McCarthy-Davis week. Dylan Davis is riding lights out. He's making his pops proud. The 2 girls are getting stronger at finishing.
Oh, yeah.
And on my sheet the other day, in my write-up, I said one of the highlights of the Sunday card was Jackie Davis and Trevor McCarthy in the same race. And I speculated which
They're husband and wife,
yes,
right?
Which one would outpush the other? And what happens in that race? Trevor's up the rail with the 1, and the wife comes down the middle of the lane with the Saratoga 6,
Yes.
and she busts by him. And I'm wondering if Trevor out of the ride says, "Uh-oh, am I going to get dinner tonight or what?" But the Davis family is really lighting it up.
It's great.
And it couldn't happen to a greater group.
I also want to mention a couple riders.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, Irad Ortiz and Jose get most of the press here. But pound for pound, in my opinion, the best rider, if he got the stock that those two guys got, he would be leading rider here. And that's Tyler Gaffalione. I am a big fan of Tyler. That guy is in perfect position all the time. Great finisher. You saw it yesterday with that Amos first-time starter. He's, to me, pound for pound, he's the best. Now, the best speed rider in the game is no doubt Luis Saez.
Yes.
And both Saez and Gaffalione rode in Kentucky. They did not ride at Belmont Park. They came up for special occasions. But it took a little time for them to get their footing here at the beginning of the meet because they hadn't been here. They had to regain their clients. But I'll tell you, Jose went down in that fall. He won several races this week. You know, Irad's got a nice lead, but it's no guarantee that he's going to hold on, especially if he rides the way he's been riding and gets more days, deservingly so, which we will talk about in our later segment.
Absolutely, and that's going to bring us to the end of this segment. We'll be back shortly to return at the quarter pole, and this is brought to you by WizardRacingSports.com. Stay with us.
Visit WizardRacingSports.com and purchase now. Since 1986, the Wizard has been your source for the best handicapping products for the always challenging Saratoga Meet. Wizard selections include analysis and wagering strategies for every race. Wagers are updated after late scratches. The Wizard wagers every day, backing up his opinions with his own money. Visit WizardRacingSports.com and purchase now.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for staying with us. We're at the quarter pole now. This is our wagering segment. And, Michael was fortunate, also skilled. He had 8 top winners the week before, managed to have a day where he had 8 top winners in a row again. And, we talked a little bit about how he tried to capitalize from a betting standpoint the first day. Well, let's talk about what happened the second day.
Well, greed got me the first day. Okay, so, a $3,000 day quickly dissipated into a $1,500 day when I overbet testing the gods of racing on a horse we both liked at 5-1, and we get beat at the wire. So that day, having 8 real solid top winners got me a 3/4 of a squat, right? I mean, it wasn't a full, but it was at least profitable.
Yeah.
I come back on another 8 top winning day. Now, no 2 8 top winner days are the same.
Well, I can't say that I know that, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, in between the bookends of this day were 2 5-1 shots, but in between were chalky horses. So I take credit for the 5-1 shots. I don't take a whole lot of credit for the 6 favorites because I'm not even I'm winning like 38 or 39% for the meet. And actually winners are the percentage is higher than my picking because so many favorites are coming in. But when I say I hit 8 top winners and I made $75, I'm like, how the hell did I do that? How I did that was I'm not really a win better. Like, I'll bet the win at 5-1, right? I'll bet the win. But these 2-1 shots, 8-5, 9-5, I don't want any part of them. It's just, unless I think that a 2-1 should be even money, but then I'm afraid that I'll bet the 2-1 and they'll hit the far turn and go into the stretch and it'll turn to 4-5. So I don't bet those. Yeah. So I'm looking to play pick 4s I'm looking to leverage, looking trifectas, exactas, keying, all that. And what happened on that winner day is that I hit the win bets on the 2 bookends, but I blew every bet because I couldn't hook the pick 4 up. I would, single a horse, that would lose. In the trifecta, it would come back shorter than my investment. Nothing seemed to click on that day. So I just want to tell you people, you're going to have big days, and you're going to walk out of the track and you're going to say, how did I do that? How did I mush that apart? So that is the truth.
Yes.
A very weak result on an 8-winner day. Now
it's a tough game.
Okay, so now I get Thursday and Friday. This happened on Wednesday. Thursday and Friday were basically nothing for nothing. Breaky, maybe lose a few dollars. I get to Saturday. I have 2 major opinions and one that's come off the grass late that I had to call an audible, right?
Okay.
So I thought that in the race, the Alfred G. the Vanderbilt,
yeah.
I thought that Elite Power, if he was going to get beat, this monster, this was the day. I loved Goodnight, who I thought would have tactical position. If there was, it had rained and I moved, Elite Power had no wet track form. Goodnight had a real solid win on a wet track. Yeah. Tactical edge. Now, obviously, the bet that I gave was a win bet on Goodnight and an exacta cold 5-4 over Elite Power. Yeah. Now, you may think, what the hell am I involved in a race like that for? The reason is that when I bet, Goodnight was 8-5 and the Elite Power was 3-5. So I felt it was a 2-horse race in a 4-horse field, that 8-5 was value, okay? That rare value situation. I bet like $400 to win on Goodnight and a $300 cold exacta. Now, when the gate opens and they hit the far turn, Goodnight goes down to even money or 4-5. Like the odds reverse. And I'm saying, there it goes, hand in my pocket, stealing my money. I would have never made that win bet. But the exacta, when I bet it, it was paying like $7. It was 5-2 and change on a cold exacta, and that was value in a 2-horse race. What happens? Goodnight loses by a nose or a neck at the wire, gets nailed. That's like, oh my God, now that's just the start.
Keep going.
We get to the Jim Dandy. My strongest play of the entire meet.
We're going to talk about this in the final segment.
Right. We both agreed I'm a sucker for lone speed. The bet of the meet was Saudi Crown. Okay, absolutely, both hands, all in. I'm not betting Forte. I'll use him in the exacta, right? And I'll use Angel of Empire, thinking that if Forte doesn't come up good, that Cox could run 1-2. I love this play. I was salivating. I was even telling, people just bet. I did. Okay. Now, I bet he was 3-1. He never went down. He bet with like 2 minutes to go. I bet 1,000 to win on Saudi Crown, and an exacta, a $300 exacta over both Angel of Empire and Fort, and I reversed for $100. Okay, the play was ridiculous amount, like way over my betting, comfort level. The result, as everyone could see, okay, and we'll talk about what we thought about that result. I lose by a nose, right? Then there's the inquiry, and we'll talk about that, but I get squat, okay? So now it's 2 awful defeats, and now I really got to gather myself because there's a race soon after.
That you like.
One race after, 30 minutes after that I made the audible. I called the audible when it came off the turf. My close friend's brother's horse, in the 11th race, off the turf, lock, right? But now I've lost 2 major bets. I'm down over $2,500, like a lot of money, and now I'm going in for more, right? Oh my God. So I had to just take a deep breath, get a chowder, visit the chowder man, shove down a chowder, and just say, this is a race separate from the other 2, okay? So I bet this horse in the trifectas, exactas, key him, don't even reverse, breaks slow, rushes up, goes to the rail, gets pinned on the rail, loses by a neck. That was my day. Oh. So he has 3 awful beats. So now we get to Sunday. Now, this is the psychological part that everyone should understand, is that this is a crucifying day, right? I mean, it doesn't matter how much you're betting. I got to get up the next day and reload and bet. So I have another opinion. Okay, I go and I bet an exacta box, but I bet the trifecta box instead in a maiden race. And the exacta box comes in and pays 60. And I look at my computer and I ended up betting a trifecta box and running 1, 2, 4, cashing nothing. So now I blow it after this crucifying Saturday.
Why are you making me sit and listen to this?
Because you have to listen. Everybody has to listen. I have to talk. Okay.
Okay. Well,
so now I come to the Bowling Green.
Yeah.
Now, in the Bowling Green, the key to the race was Strong Quality, who was a late scratch. He was the main speed. Now, once he's out, I make an audible. I like Rebels Romance, whose jock falls off the horse. And the only other 2 horses that can run in that race are Verstappen and Channel Maker. Because Channel Maker now becomes the lone speed. Yeah. I make these huge exactas with Rebels Romance over those 2. Okay? Trifectas, King Rebels Romance over those 2 overall. Because I think Rebels Romance is going to run in this spot. Why would Appleby ship the horse here? I'm all in. Another $500, $600. With 1 minute or 2 minutes to go, it just, I don't know. The gods of racing said, geez. Wizard, toss out Rome. Maybe the jock falls off the horse.
No.
And I decide I'm going to box the 3 in an exacta. The $2 exacta paid $400 and something. And after this excruciating week, excruciating and painful, I finally got the money and a $400 and something exacta. That never occurred to me. I gave out the trifecta in my sheet. I gave out in the update those 3 horses, but then I'm looking at the prices and I'm saying, and I didn't bet that much. I bet $8, right? Which is a small bet for me. Just like, what the hell? Like, what the hell do I have to lose? Another, $48 for what I've gone through? And would you believe it? It's those bets we hit.
Sometimes,
that get, when we're not even thinking about it, that get us back. But the key to what I'm saying, the lesson, is no matter how painful this game could be, you got to keep your head. And you got to not overbet like me, because fortunately I can't use cash here, so I got to start using it out of the floorboards because they're not going to be worth anything anymore.
There you go. Well, let's bet 1,000 to win. Let's bet a $500 exacta, and let's save the week with a $12 exacta box. What a country.
An $8 exacta box. What a
country. Right. Okay, well, that'll bring us to the end of this segment.
Got the horse right here, the name is Paul Revere, and here's a guy that says if the weather's clear.
Now here's our segment on a horse to watch, perhaps a bet back or a bet against. What do you got, Michael?
I have, in the same race, a bet for and a possible bet against.
There we go.
In the same race, and believe it or not, in a 5-horse field, okay? The race was the Amsterdam in race 10, and I'm going to explain this to you, and you'll understand it, why this is a horse to watch and a horse to bet against at underlaid price. So in this race, Rivet was really the speed of the race, but I handicapped it as a possible duel between Rivet and the eventual winner, New York Thunder. So the way I'm looking at this race is that both horses are going to duel, and the pace is going to be blistering, and it's going to be set up for a horse that's going to sit a pocket trip. And that horse was Drew's Gold, another horse I absolutely loved. But that horse was going to be the favorite, but I thought was a winner of this race. Right out of the gate, Rivet stumbles, quickly finds himself third. That puts New York Thunder on a loose lead. Now, New York Thunder had never run on the dirt before, so it was a question mark on how he would handle the dirt. Well, he handled it just fine, but he's a quality horse that, given a loose lead, and he's very fast, he is now the dominant pace setter in the field, and he lays down these ridiculous fractions. Well, because Rivet is third and Drew's Gold moves up to take second, Drew's Gold has got to do the dirty work. He can't run 21-2, 43-3, 107-4. That's not his game. His game is sitting behind a duel that could go fast, or sitting behind a lone speed going 22 and change, 20. He can't do this. So Drew's Gold is taken completely out of his game, and what happens is New York Thunder blows away the field in fast time. So this race looks better. Now, it was good, and this horse is undefeated, and maybe he's great, but he's going to be overbet off that final time and pace. If he gets into a speed duel next time out, he could be vulnerable. But the horse I want back is Drew's Gold, because Drew's Gold was severely compromised by this pace setup.
I think one other thing, too, is when you watch the race, New York Thunder went so fast, he never changed leads in the stretch. He came home laboring.
I think at the end, the last part of the race, he did switch leads. His race was monstrous,
right.
But you don't give, on this track, a horse like that clear a lead, setting those kind of fractions. He's good, but that whole race changed, the whole complexity, when the other speed horse stumbled out of the gate. So this is a case of looking at the race and how it's set up and who was compromised and who was helped by the scenario.
Okay, we'll be back shortly with Down the Stretch. This is WizardRacingSports.com.
You want a triple crown?
Welcome back to Down the Stretch. This is the interview part of our show, and it's my pleasure to introduce not only a great horseman in New York, but has become a very dear friend of mine, David Duggan. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I got a quick story to tell you.
Okay.
One I've told you, one I haven't. One is, back in the 80s, I worked in a Mexican restaurant, and it was owned by an Irishman and a Dominican. And the Irishman his name was Alphonsus McCourt.
Okay.
Now, Alfie was one of my dearest friends, and I was the cashier of this very popular Mexican restaurant. And his brother was Frank McCourt, who at the time was writing Angela's Ashes on cocktail napkins with a pencil at the bar while drinking. And Alfie said, "Michael, this is going to be a good movie when it's done." And me and him got so close, and we would take walks in Central Park. It was on 71st and Columbus Avenue, so the park was like a block away. And we would take walks a lot. And one day, he knew I was into horse racing because I had a racing form right on my cash register. So every time the form came out at 7:30, I ran to the newsstand, got the form, and all the waiters had to wait to cash out their checks until I got back. So Alfie, in our walk one day, said to me, and I was the wizard, I was becoming the wizard, but he would say, "Michael, one day I want you to own a horse, but if you own a horse in New York, you gotta hire an Irishman." And I said, "Well, why an Irishman?" He goes, "We're good." We're good, we're honest, we're hard workers, and we know what the hell we're doing. So, fast track a lot of years later, and I decide to buy a horse, a yearling, and I paid $100,000 for the horse last year. And I know a lot of trainers in New York, but I don't want Chad Brown, I don't want the big name trainers. So I'm like thinking, who could I use to train my horse? And I call up Richard Migliori, somebody that I've known for a lot of years. I said, Richard, you hang out on the backstretch. You know everybody, including the dogs in the stable, right? You know everybody. I trust your judgment. I said, who should I have train my horse? And he looks at me and he goes, Wizard, I got one man for the job. I go, really? Who is that? Is it Bob Baffert? I don't want Baffert. He goes, no, it's David Duggan. And I like, really? Really? David Duggan. Okay, I know the guy. You know, I know he wins races, right? I don't know a lot about you, right? But I look you up. I say, yeah, this guy is somewhat successful, under the radar, right? And then all of a sudden, Alfie, who has now passed away, comes into my head while I'm laying down falling asleep. And I said, bingo, it's an Irishman. So here I am sitting with my friend, a real Irishman, on my show, and it's a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
So David, as a kid, you're in Ireland. At what point in your life did you decide you wanted to go into horse racing? Were your family in it?
Yeah, well, my uncle had the horses. He was the ones that kind of initiated everything. He had jumping horses, and from an early age we would always help out. And eventually, like I said, you were good enough to ride, and we had ponies as well when we were younger as well. So we were always, messing around. But the actual racing bug was started by my uncle Matt and then my uncle John, and that's what got us into it. And we at a lower level, point to points, like the amateur type of level, and then we delved into like a little bit of jump and race, not say the racetrack version of it. And we did okay.
Where in Ireland?
I was originally from Tipperary.
Okay, so you're a young kid, a young lad, right? You're obviously starting at the bottom, right? Are you mucking stalls, kind of? What are you doing? Like, how old were you when you first went into the barns?
Yeah, I think my uncle had it when we were 9 or 10. Was our first delve into the jump and racing, or the racing aspect of it. But we had been at ponies at an earlier stage. But I was riding out before I went to school, and the usual stuff. When you got home, you were always taking care of them, and then you took your days off when we had a runner.
Okay.
But yeah, he did okay. He had like a Galway Plate winner, which was like a pretty significant Galway festival, and my uncle John has gone on to do well with Cheltenham winners and stuff like that.
So
owning them, not training them.
So you really never, at that point, were you thinking about being a trainer, or
No.
you were always thinking about being a rider?
I had no clue where I was going.
You had no clue.
No.
So what made you what happened that made you decide you're going to be in the game?
Well, I rode as a professional rider and an amateur apprentice in Ireland for about 6 or 7 years, and did a lot of traveling, went to a lot of different places, India, Australia, Germany, a lot of different places. So I kind of delved in a lot of different kind of aspects of different countries. Then I had a bad fall in '93, and I ended up in California.
So you were riding jumpers,
no,
right?
I was
just flat.
Mainly flat, and delved in a little bit into the jump game, and I decided that it was not quite for me. But I'd still had about a couple of rides, but just not to the same level as I should be.
So you fall off a horse, you get injured, right? And you say enough is enough, no more riding.
Yeah, I was stood down for about 8 months because I had a bang on my head. I kind of banged my head a little bit. So my wife had sent off for a visa to go to America, and I kind of thought it was a good time to kind of say, okay, let's take a little sabbatical, and went to California and decided to stay.
So Lara, your wife,
Yes.
she also grew up in the game. Like, she was telling me at dinner that night that her father was a big time, like pretty big time horse person in Ireland,
yeah.
right? Was he a trainer?
He was a trainer later in life, but he was a jockey for the first part of his life, and he was like generational horseman.
Really good.
Very good, yeah.
So she's in Ireland working, right? Where did you meet?
We met working for John Ox. She had come back from to train See the Stars.
Sea to the Stars.
Yeah, See the Stars.
That
yeah.
was a great horse.
Well, we weren't around at that time, but that's the guy we worked for, John Ox.
Oh, right.
And she had come back from America, and I had started riding out for John Ox, and I was like riding as a flat jockey, and that's where we met.
Okay, so when you came to California, did you come together?
Yes, yeah. And I worked for Neil Drysdale for 2 years when I was there.
That was your first job?
That was my first job, yeah.
As an assistant?
No, just galloping. You know.
Oh, galloping,
just galloping horses and kind of taking everything in. Didn't know what I was going to do. I mean, I was kind of looking over the fence, looking for a new career, basically.
And what year was that?
94, 95.
So Neil Drysdale at that time was a great. He was having great success, right? I mean,
he was just after the time with Hollywood Wildcat, that show, when I was there, but I wasn't around for that time. But French Deputy was the horse that basically was the best horse that I ever.
How long did you work for Drysdale?
For 2 years.
Okay, so after 2 years, now your wife is working for who?
She worked for, I can't think of the guy's name now in California. Oh, Christopher Speckert.
Okay, Speckert,
yeah.
right.
So, and then, like I said, I got to a stage where obviously we were looking for something different. And when I came to New York for the Breeders' Cup with French Deputy, I got introduced to John Kimmel.
Okay, so now and John Kimmel at the time, actually my friends owned Thunder Gulch.
That was just before I got there.
And they sold the horse. Kimmel was the trainer of record on the Maiden Win.
Yeah.
And they sold the horse, and if I'm not mistaken, Lucas became the trainer, and we know what happened with Thunder Gulch.
Correct, yeah.
So you come to New York for the Breeders' Cup?
Yeah, for the Breeders' Cup, yeah, with French Deputy.
And then what happens? You meet Kimmel and...
Yeah, I got introduced by Simon Harris, because I was, like I said, I was looking over the fence looking for something different to do, and what did I do? I was in the right frame of mind looking for something different, and John was a good educator and kind of helped propel me to the next stage. And I was exercise rider, doing all the grunt work, you know, and like I said, you were in that frame of mind where you wanted to learn, and John was a good educator.
So, and John knew a lot about the physiology of the horses. If I'm not mistaken, he was a vet, wasn't? Or he had experience in that end in medicine.
Yes, he was a practicing vet, but he switched it back over to training. But he was able to articulate things to me that be able to put it in layman's terms that I could understand it.
So how long did you work for John?
5 years.
Okay, so now we're 2000 or something. What happens then?
I was in Gulfstream Park at the Breeders' Cup, and I met Owen Harty. And at that time, he was after getting asked to go to Dubai to break all the 2-year-olds for Sheikh Mohammed, because they were actually changing their structure of how they did business. And he said, this is what I'm doing. I'm looking for someone with experience in America to come over here, get all the 2-year-olds broken and bring them back and race them in America. And then when we'd finished that process, we'd hand them back over to Sheikh Saeed bin Surur, whoever was the...
That's unbelievable. I mean, that's unbelievable, right? Because the horses were unbelievable.
It was a great opportunity at the time. Obviously, like I said, I was looking for something different when I left John and went to work for Owen. And it was a great experience because we got to go to Dubai every winter for about 4 winters. And it was great. I mean, we were around a couple of very good horses, and then that kind of phased out toward the end, you know. They just changed their philosophy and how they did business again in America.
So you grow up in Ireland, you come to the States, and now you're ending up in Dubai. What was it like living in Dubai?
I was from an early stage, I was always willing to travel and kind of see different things, and it was very nice. That Dubai was at that trend where they were starting to get really, really big. It was great. It was a great experience and great people. I mean, and Sheikh Mohammed had great foresight, and you were in that kind of, I'd say, trajectory where they were going, and they were seeing things in a different mindset than than what we would see it, and it was like fantastic to see.
Did you ever meet Sheikh Mohammed?
Yeah, we met him. Yeah, they actually had they named the horse after Tiger Woods when they had the thing over there, and he would come to the barn with Tiger Woods to name a horse. They named the horse, but he was no good.
Do you know that I talked to him?
You did, yeah?
For 30 minutes. Do you know how?
How?
So I'm hired by Churchill Downs to they told me that Sheikh Mohammed that year had 2 horses, Regal something, and another horse entered in the Derby. And no one knew if the Sheikh was coming. And he was going to be doing his first NBC interview. And Churchill said, Wizard, come down. When Sheikh is coming up, the Sheikh is coming up, but nobody really knows. Even when I was in the back in his barn, they had those 2 horses were already there. The assistant manager, the assistant stable manager knew that he was coming, but no one else really did. And they said, we want you to help him get through the interview, kind of talk about the field with him, how the race sets up. He's kind of nervous. He's never done this. So he flies into Lexington, Kentucky in his 787 with the Queen of Jordan, who was his wife at the time. And it's kind of drizzling. I'm in the paddock all by myself. And I kind of know what he looks like, you know, and, you know, thin, well-dressed, you know, kind of a short crop beard. And there's no one there. And all of a sudden he comes out of this, like, door, and he's right in front of me. And I look at him, and I know it's him. And the Queen of Jordan was just string of pearls, nothing, nice dress, you know, nothing pretentious at all. He's in a nice pinstripe suit. And I go, I don't know what to refer to him as. So I said, Mr. Sheikh, I'm the Wizard. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, puts out his hand. Hello, Mr. Wizard. I said, I'm here to help you through this interview with the NBC. So I went through, talked to him 15, 20 minutes. And then after he said, I think I'm ready to do it. You know, I really appreciate it. So I said, Mr. Sheikh, I got a question for you, other than could you send me 50 gallons of gas, you know, or oil, you know. I didn't say that, but I said, Mr. Sheikh, I got a question for you. When you want to decompress and you just want to do something for fun, what do you do? And he says, Mr. Wizard, he goes, I race camels in the desert for 200 miles. I say, well, who do you race against? He goes, other family members, right? I go, are they betting on this camel racing? And he goes, we make our own side wagers, you know? And he couldn't have been any nicer to me. And he even said, Mr. Wizard, if you ever get to Dubai, I want you to come on me. Now, I never took him up on it. I just let it go. But he goes, I'm building this hotel, and it's got a ski slope in the hotel. So if you like skiing, just go to the hotel and go down the slope. Yeah. And he goes, the economy is a little rough, so I've kind of had to halt the building right now, but it's a great place. And if you need jewelry, I'll get you a deal. So it couldn't have been a nicer conversation with him.
Yeah, I mean, he's got amazing foresight, and I think he's done amazing things for racing in Ireland, England, and America. And like I said, he plays to the beat of his own drum, you know. Some people criticize him, but I think from what I saw, from what I met, couldn't ask for a better person.
And one of these years, sooner than later, I guarantee you, if it's not Goldolphin winning a Kentucky Derby, it's going to be some chaps in Japan that come in and they are getting to learn what it's like to win a prestigious dirt race. It will happen. Of course. You agree?
100%.
So how many years you're in Dubai?
5 years.
Just the winters?
Just the winters.
And where are you the rest of the year?
We'd come back to California for a couple of months, and then I would leave California, go to Chicago with the second tier, and then I come back later after Chicago, and then I go back into quarantine, and then we go back to Dubai and start the process all over again. We'd disperse all the horses, and Owen would evaluate them to the ones that needed to go to Saeed bin Sarour, and then the other ones would be delved out to other trainers in Dubai.
So now you come back to New York eventually, right? Now, do you come back to New York to start your career as a trainer on your own right away, or do you go back to being an assistant for someone?
We came back to New York when the casinos came to New York, and we kind of looked at it and kind of said, it was phasing out with Owen. They were changing their business plan, so we kind of had to look at from our perspective. And we decided, because they would casinos in New York, the purses would go up, there'd be a lot of new interest there, and whatever fell off the king's table, well, basically we could pick up and we might do all right. But the mistake that I probably made when I set off was that I knew people, but I didn't have relationships with them. So the first couple of years was kind of a little bit struggle till we got going. And after year 3, we were picked up a little bit more momentum, and 4 years into it, we were on a stride. But it took that couple of years to get going.
How many years now have you been a trainer in New York?
About 15, 16 years, I think.
So it's taken that long, right, to build up. So you've been here 15 years.
17 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you've had, I remember you went on a tear. Like, was it last year or this past winter where you were winning almost over 25% of your races?
Yeah, we did well. Last year was probably a more of a breakout year, because we had a couple of struggled years. We set off, we did okay, and then it did a nosedive and then kind of trended back up again. So the last 2 years have been a little bit better.
What's amazing to me about your operation, and I walk over almost every day and bother you, and I see, I visit you, is that it's such a husband and wife team. You both ride. Lara rides, works the horses, and it's one of those unusual, and I think it's a fantastic model. You have maybe 17 horses, 16, 17, that's the sweet spot, right? But again, versus so many other trainers that have much more. I mean, forget about the Pletchers and the Chad Browns that got an Asmussen who've got horses all over the country. But you're comfortable with that number of horses. Tell me why that's your business model and how it's worked for you.
I mean, I think when you decide to have a larger operation, you have to have the philosophy that that's what you want and that's your comfort level. This to us, to a certain extent, is our comfort level. I mean, if somebody offered me 50 horses, I might have to change how we do business or structure how you do it different. But I feel that I can provide better service by doing it on a smaller scale. I feel that it seems that it works best for me. It mightn't work best for somebody else. Maybe they want a little bit more movement and stuff like that. But I feel personally I can service the client better on that model. It works for me. That's probably the best way to describe it.
How many different owners do you have?
Clear Star Stables were the one that joined us last year, so they got multiple people that are involved. But there's, between 8 and 10 owners.
Right, and you got a lot of the Rick Schosberg horses that he recently retired, so you got those horses.
Yes.
And I think having that hands-on approach, you're really aware of everything about every particular horse, especially since Lara rides all these horses, and I saw you on horseback today. Do you work horses yourself, or you just...
Not as much. Not as much,
but when you see a 4 furlong or a 5 furlong or a 3 furlong blowout, it's Lara that's on them, right? Yeah. So you really know that communication, that relationship, yes, you're husband and wife, but you're also trainer and trainer. So the communication is off the charts. It's, you have such a handle on those horses.
It's an unfiltered information. Like I said, when I get the questionable look, I know I'm in trouble. But at least at that stage, you know exactly where you're at. There's no fluffing it. Basically, you know where you're at. You know what you have to do to get to the next stage. If you're not good enough, she'll say, hey, I don't think we belong here. Maybe we're running in too long. So you're getting very good information. That's how you use that.
When you're working with your wife, and it's basically 24/7, right? Is the work relationship, so do you argue sometimes where you have a difference of opinion, and you kind of it's a tug of war, or you kind of on the same wavelengths most of the time?
I think 90% of the time we're on the same wavelength. If there's a complaint, it's usually about something else other than horses. But I think once we explain ourselves, mightn't always 100% agree, but I think once I kind of give my opinion and she gives her opinion, you'll kind of come to mutual ground.
Now you have 2 lovely daughters. They're actually right here with me. And have they ever had any interest in the racing game?
And they're interested to a certain point. Emily gets on horses, and Lily just, like I said, she likes horses and likes animals, but
She's the artist.
She's the artist, yeah.
And she's a great artist too. That I can attest to. But so they are involved in some.
Yeah.
I'll tell you. One of the beautiful things that I saw this meet. Right. I mean, and I'm like in the grandstand. I roam around. I move around. But when you won that day, and with what was the name of the horse that?
Tiebreaker.
Right, and you were very confident that horse was firing. But I went right to the winners. They're not going to let the wizard in. But from the outside, I got your attention. I got your kids' attention. Your wife's attention. You came out. You did your interview. So you got your 10-minute, 5 minutes, or whatever of glory. And you come out. We give each other a hug. And I look at the expression on your two daughters' faces, and Lara's, and yours. And there was so much love. There was so much like joy. And then I watched you walk away with your two daughters, and you were arm in arm, like hooking arm in arm. And it was just like, wow, this is like the ultimate family, love. You're celebrating. It's so hard to win a race at Saratoga. There's many ways to lose. And when you get that win, to me, there's nothing like it. I'm 1 for 1 at Saratoga with my horse. And the joy I felt, I had all my friends. We won a nose photo, and it's exhilarating. There's nothing like it. It's not the same as at Belmont or Aqueduct. No. It's just not the same. But that was an extremely joyous, for me, I'm not even, I felt I was part of your family. I felt like I was Uncle Wizard. And I was like, tagging along, and I wanted you to throw me some carrots, know. But it was so great to see that. Now, racing is a community. I'm a part of the community, sort of superfluous, like from the outside. But when I walk in, a lot of people know me. And trainers know me. They know that I'm part of the game, right? And yes, I'm a handicapper, but I also love the game, care about the game, see how hard you work and how the horsemen work. I mean, these horses are treated better than human beings. There's so much care. There's so much love. There's so much sweat and tears. You get up at 4 a.m. You don't go to bed. We work our asses off here. I mean, for me, it's 14-hour days, 7 days a week. We're trying to win races, okay? So it's a real community that I feel part of. So the question I have for you is, there's a new sheriff in town, Heisa. And it's causing the pot is being mixed, right? And trainers, look, the reality is Heisa is a result of what has happened over the years that has gotten out of hand. There's no doubt there were cheaters, and they're cheaters. There's no doubt. Now, there's a lot more horsemen than there are cheaters. The game isn't full of, are made up of mostly cheaters. But those people that have cheated have ruined the perception of the game to the viewing public. Then you add on the debts on the racetrack. You add on what's happened to the breed of the racehorse. Heisa comes in and says, enough is enough. We're going to fix this. Tell me as a horseman, first of all, you obviously welcome Heisa, but what's your feeling about what's going on and what you want done to correct the mistakes that they've made? They've tried to do a lot in a short period of time, but give me as a horseman, representing, you're a good representative of the entire backstretch. Tell me your feelings about it.
Well, I think that they've obviously taken on something that's, to me, probably will never be 100% fixed. I think that they've got possibly an impossible job, and trying to blanketly fix everything in racing overnight is not going to happen. I mean, to me, everything, obviously, incremental changes are probably better than, blanket fixing it. We obviously needed to be corrected on a lot of stuff that was in racing, and the perception of racing is probably, as you said, was the key factor. People didn't trust us, people didn't like us, they didn't like the horses breaking down, they didn't like the amount of medications in the thing, they felt it was abused. As to HISA going forward, I think, listen to me, anything that ever starts, you're always going to be very critical of them as they start, because it's something new. So instead of using your right hand, you're using your left hand. So I think as we go forward, we'll get used to working with them, they'll get used to working with us, and I think they've adjusted as they've gone forward. We've brought concerns on our side to those, and they've listened to it, and they've brought it back, and they said they're going to fix it. So I think there's a lot of good people. I know a lot of good people that are involved in it, and they're giving a lot of good information to Lisa Lazarus, and she's responding to it very, very well. So now, as long as you have a working relationship, I think there's more room for improvement than there is negatives. And I think if you look back at it from 5 years, from where it's at right now to where it's going to be in 5 years, it'll be a distant memory. So I think that's I look at it 5 years ahead rather than looking at it right now and kicking and complaining like a child in the corner over something that's so trivial. If I've got a problem, I'm going to go and say it to someone, and they'll take it to them, and they will change it. I think that's where you have to look. You have to look at it where it's going to be in 5 years rather than what it is right now. And I think that's where it'll...
I was talking to a big name trainer that I won't mention his name, but he said to me that he makes sure there's nothing in his barn. There's no medicine of any kind. That if a horse needs something, when the vet comes, he'll have them administer the medication, record it, right? Yeah. And I asked him, why to that extreme that you don't have anything in your barn at all? Because, the owners now, what costs maybe $5 for something, if you're going right to the vet, it could cost that owner $20, $25. Mm-hmm. But he said to me, which made perfect sense, it's so obvious, he said, Wizard, I've been in the game 40 years, 50 years. I've trained Breeders' Cup winners. I live and breathe this game. I'm a horseman. I don't want to make a mistake to have my reputation tarnished on some. I have to go to at all costs, try to prevent being, caught for something that I wasn't even aware of. And as a result, maybe lose owners, but more importantly, tarnish my career. How do you, as a horseman, I don't get it. Like, they test for picograms, or a minuscule, like a microscopic thing could show up as a positive, right? Mm-hmm. A groom comes into your barn, he burnt his arm, and he put lanocaine on it, right? To prevent scarring or whatever. And he's next to he doesn't wipe it off, right? And he's next to the horse, and the horse licks him, right? Airborne stuff, feed that gets contaminated. How do you really avoid the pitfalls of something so highly, maybe over-regulated?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be a monitoring thing that they're going to have to deal with. Obviously, every case is going to have to be dealt with individually. Obviously, the Bob Baffert case was probably the poster boy for all this type of stuff with the lidocaine and the Derby. But I mean, we try to be as cautious as you can at the barn, and it's even more prevalent nowadays because of what we're under, the regulations we're under. And as you say, the trainer basically that you spoke about, you're learning to use a new model. This was the old model of how you did your business. You bought it in bulk, you bought Butte, you bought all the stuff in bulk, and you were able to bill it out to your owners at a lower cost. Now that business has been handed directly over to the veterinary people because it has to be directly logged into HISA report on whatever horses they get. So if we get adjudicated on this side, we know exactly what has been given to the horse, and if something else shows up, they know someone has been playing under the table. So as to your question, who knows? I couldn't give you a straight answer. At least if you're given an opportunity to be able to fight your case, which is probably one of the reasons why they had issues with Ray Handel and all that type of stuff early on. At least if you're given a case and allowed to explain yourself, and if they believe you, great. If they don't believe you, I mean, there's not a lot else you can do.
You know, in the Ray, you mentioned Ray Handel. Like, I remember that well because I got a call that, you know, he was escorted out of the racetrack. It was July 4th weekend. And the results did not come back positive. You know, he was almost guilty before proven. He was guilty before proven innocent, which to me is unconstitutional based on our laws in America. So it's the weekend. He leaves. He gets escorted out. He's trying to find an attorney to represent him. You know, which I think he gets Clark Brewster, right? But it's not until like Wednesday or Thursday that, you know, things allow him, you know, you can come back on the track. But, you know, he's a young guy, hard worker. I don't know if the end result is there was a positive or not, you know, but still, you know, I just feel that these split samples that are coming back, they have to come back quicker. You know, in California, they come, from what I understand, they come back in less than a week. Here, I've talked to trainers that say it could be a month, you know, but you can't, you know, I think, you know, like I imagine a picogram. I mean, I don't even know what that is conceptually, but I mean, that's not going to make a horse run faster.
Nope.
I mean, it doesn't make sense that it would. So I think that the drugs that they're classifying as illegal medication have to be like real drugs that are performance enhancing. Not, you know, I think they have to come up with that model, you know, those rules a little bit. You know, you can't, Ray Handel lost, I think, a couple owners because of this, but he's back training, he's fine, he's not been found guilty, but his reputation has been tarnished. You know, you guys work your ass off. You know, you have years of reputation, you know, and that is, it shouldn't be that way. Do you agree?
Well, I think, yes. I mean, I think that the process was a little flawed, the first part. I mean, obviously they were lynching before they actually put you on the court to defend yourself. So obviously Ray was the sacrificial lamb that basically kind of, you know, they made him kind of stand up and say, okay, what we're doing here is wrong. We need to change the process. And I think that's been addressed to some extent. But, you know, the offshoot of that is you have it all depends in the end whether he gets the result or not, but you're basically tarred and feathered in Twitter reverse and open thing. People don't believe you, and like you said, you lose clients because of it, and your reputation is tarnished, and going forward it's always a negative. But in saying that, it's I do believe that they have addressed it. I do believe that they're listening, and like I said, okay, this is a stepping stone that we have to get. 5 years time, if they're making the same mistakes, we're in deep trouble. And
I think they're going to get better at it.
I have no doubt they will.
And I'm hopeful that I get Lisa Lazarus for the next week's show, because that will be an interesting interview that I could have with her and have her explain. Also, I want her to explain in layman's terms that everybody could explain what the vision is, what the end game is, what mistakes that they actually made, and how they're correcting them. So where do you, what would, if you look into a crystal ball, the Wizard's crystal ball, where would you like to see yourself 5 years from now?
I mean, our business model is going to change probably because we're physically not able to get on the horses as much, so that'll be a little bit of a transitional time for us. I mean, obviously I don't get on as many horses and stuff, but you know, we're at an age where we're going to get basically priced out of, you know, getting on horses, so obviously we'll have to transition that. But I always prefer to be like a little bakery in the corner doing that type of store rather than having a big Kmart mindset.
You hit your first win at Saratoga. You have some livestock for later in the meet, and I'm not going to ask you who those horses are. You'll tell me off camera. But, you know, who's the best horse you ever trained? The one that gave you the most excitement?
I mean, Stud Muffin was.
Oh,
yeah.
Stud Muffin, New York bred, right? What do you win? What races you win with Stud Muffin? The big ones.
The Empire Classic.
Right.
Yeah, and drafted.
Drafted. Now drafted. You told me I had watched all those that horse's races, but he kind of got long in the tooth, you know, of late. You've retired him, right?
Correct. Yeah.
He gave you a lot. This was like the Silky Sullivan of modern day racing, come from way out of the clouds.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think they'll make an effing movie about him, you know, at some stage, you know. He's been good to everyone that has kind of touched his, been around him. And like I said, he's kind of got a good retirement right now, so he's rewarded as well.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to get my 2-year-old in your hands. I just hope that the horse stays sound, and I come up with Walk With Me to you, and I hope, you know, everybody has dreams in this game, you know, and those dreams don't always amount to the reality that you want in your head, but you got to dream. We're all dreamers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a process going from A to Z, and you know, you can have a real good horse running for 10,000, running competitively. It's finding their level. It's like when you're running an allowance horse, you know, and it should be running for 20. I'm not doing my service to you as a client if I do that.
Well, Bob Baffert, who's a friend of mine for years, I've been sending him videos of her and, you know, and things, and he said, Wizard, like, enough is enough. Like, after it works its first 4/8 of a mile, let me know. Then we'll know what you have, right? So, you know, when she works her first 4/8 of the mile, we'll know what we have in company.
Well, you'll have a fair idea.
Yeah. But as Richard Migliori said to me, I couldn't find a better horseman. You know, that was his number one, like, without hesitation. Like, that's like, to me, that was like, oh my God, and an Irishman to boot. And so not only are you a great horseman, but what I've gotten to know you, you're even a better person. And I love your family. And I'm very fortunate to, you know, have met you and be part of your circle, because every morning I get up, the first person I want to see is you.
Thank you
and
very
that's
much.
what I do. I make a straight run with my coffee to your barn. And I see you and Laura and your dog walking around, pet your dog walking around. And I really appreciate you coming on the show. I hope it was, you know, you found it to be a fun interview.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, my man.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll be back shortly with our fourth segment, the Gallop Out. And this segment will be very interesting because me and Tom talk about our wine stewards, right? The incidents that happened this past week that didn't do them much justice. Talking about the Jim Dandy and a couple other races. So we're going to delve into that in our fourth segment. This show has been brought to you by WizardRacingSports.com. See you back shortly for the Gallop Out. Visit WizardRacingSports.com and purchase now. Since 1986, the Wizard has been your source for the best handicapping products for the always challenging Saratoga League. Wizard selections include analysis and wagering strategies for every race. Wagers are updated after late scratches. The Wizard wagers every day, backing up his opinions with his own money. Visit WizardRacingSports.com and purchase now.
Well, we're here for the Gallop Out, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk significantly about the running of the Jim Dandy race. And, you know, folks, I once got suspended from my television show on Capital OTV for 2 weeks because, Michael, we started a segment on the stewards with the Three Blind Mice theme from the Three Stooges.
Right.
And we really meant no insult, but it was at the end of a week when there were so many inconsistent calls. But, you know, some folks just don't like criticism, and, you know, I committed the act and I did the time, and here we are. That was about 20 years ago.
And it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's
thing.
the same, maybe different blind mice, you know, than they were 20 years ago. I have been talking about this for a long time, and it's really gotten to be a problem that's as big as anything else in the game. You know, the stewards here, and I refer to them as the wine stewards, because
I'll just give you one tap to loosen it.
What, the sweater?
No, the head.
Oh, I got them.
Hold still.
it's a travesty what we're seeing. Now, it's funny, I met a woman when I claimed a horse in Kentucky off a breeder, and she manages the breeder, and she's the head of the steward teaching, you know, where she teaches, or she goes around the country and she has a curriculum on teaching what is a fowl and what is not a fowl. Well, she came to Saratoga at the beginning, before the meet started, and I'm sure she met with a bunch of people wanting to be stewards, including the stewards that are on hand, and was had her curriculum. Well, I'll tell you, these stewards aren't following the curriculum, because I walk through the crowd now during some of these calls this week, and there's utter disgust. It's really taken hold these last this past week. I would say it's almost incompetency to a point. It's an insult. They're supposed to be the police of the game, policing the game, and they're falling far short of being police of the game. And things have to change. I don't know who these three people are exactly, what their backgrounds are, but you sent me something about a ruling. Okay, we talked about this last week, about having some transparency, whether in a transcript about why they came up with a certain decision, or hearing an audio of it. We've heard nothing of either on what happened this week. But you sent me that, and there was a rule. They actually had the ruling, and if they followed that ruling, that they actually disqualified horses, they would have disqualified. It was the same thing, and yet the inconsistency of when a foul is a foul is not there. And there's three situations we're going to talk about, the Jim Dandy being the last one, but I want your 2 cents on this, and I'm sure you got 20 cents or more, or the 1,000 I lost, about what this is about.
Well, I think it's important. First of all, as a teacher, I had to judge things. I had to judge writing, right? Okay? And what they gave us was a set of rubrics. Unfortunately, almost all judging has some subjective nature to them, but you're supposed to be confined within the rubrics. And what you pointed out in what I sent you, there was a prime example of what they decided to do in a case nearly exactly the same as what they had to do in a Jim Dandy, and they did something different. So to me, I've always said context is everything. So the Jim Dandy event took place in the context of a non-DQ earlier in the meet, right? And then a DQ that, in my opinion, was a knee-jerk reaction to the criticism they took for the one they didn't take down. And then Mike Rapoli, and I don't know Mr. Rapoli at all. I respect him for everything he's done in his life. I love the fact that he's an Italian with a great family. I identify with that. We're both from Queens. We probably played on the same playgrounds. And Mike Rapoli, so upset still about his Kentucky Derby, makes a statement that if owners don't get more say, or if he doesn't get something that he wants, he's going to take his money and leave the game. Well, Michael, I grew up in New York, and I like to go to the playground. I wasn't a great athlete. I knew that if I had to get in the game, I had to bring the ball. Okay, and me having my ball got me in the game. If I lost and I had to sit out, I didn't say, hell, I'm taking my ball and going home. Right. Because if I did that, some guy would come over, put me in the headlock, and give me some noogies. And I would think that Mike, as a Queens guy, would understand that. And I was really surprised that he did that. He followed that up after the DQ by saying that what his act was a Bobby Knight act. He was throwing a chair on the floor over a call he didn't like. in hopes that the referees would give him the call the next time. Well, that's another thing, you know. So in the broadest context, this whole thing stinks to me.
Yeah.
So let's talk. And the last thing is, none of this ever would have happened. I couldn't understand the strategy that the Cox barn took to run this race.
Well, let's just go back a couple days.
Okay, sure.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay. I picked the racehorse in the last race. You picked the Kerry Breon long shot. Okay.
Right on top.
Now, I'm watching the race, and I'm watching the head-on in the steward's view. I won the race. That was a 5-1 shot that I said, there's no way in hell they're keeping this horse up. Irad Ortiz just comes out several pads right in front of the Kerry Breon long shot, who has to takes his path away. There's an inquiry. I leave the track. I don't even stay to hear the result. I'm coming down. And they leave it up. I find out they leave it up, and I'm flabbergasted. Not 24 hours later, there's an incident on the favorite in a turf race where Irad, there's no hole. He's on the rail. He comes out, but he looks outside. He does the right thing, and he looks over his right shoulder, and he just barely clears the horse that's behind him. And there is a little bit there is reaction. That was, you couldn't make a case to leave it up or come down. I'd probably leave it up because he made the attempt and he was clear. They take that one down, and I'm saying that was an overreaction to the press, to everything, flying papers, overreaction to what happened the day before. So a bad call on Wednesday, a marginally bad call on Thursday.
Makeup call.
And now a makeup call. Then the Jim Dandy.
And so let's get back to strategy. We both saw the race as Saudi Union going. He had such a pace advantage. He should have been 10 lengths ahead of the entire field, and Blinkered Fort was going to chase him. Right? And Angel of Empire really isn't usually forwardly placed. I figured he'd be third, and one of two things was going to happen. Saudi was going to run him off his feet. Fort was going to chase him and either get him, which I didn't think he would do, or hold second place, or perhaps Forte would weaken and from doing the dirty work, an Angel of Empire would win. That to me sounded like a reasonable strategy. And as we said before we came on air, if Bob Baffert, who everybody is criticizing these days, had a horse with Saudi Union's speed,
Saudi
Crown's speed, that horse would have been in Wilton.
He would have had 5 and back down the pace.
That's
he
right.
wouldn't have been a length, 2 lengths in front, length and a half in front. He would be well in hand and then back it down.
Right. So now, we don't have that strategy. We have a modest pace, and we have a gang. We have a gang up on what appears to be a gang up. Well, they are uncoupled entries and coupled entries are permitted. Would he complain if Saudi Union was a rabbit? Just a rabbit? Would he complain if he just sent him? He folded by the 8th pole, and Angel of Empire was allowed to run by a tiring Fort. Well, it's race riding, it's strategy. He was pinned. He got himself there, and then he tried to extricate himself, and it didn't go well.
Well, if you watch the head-on replay, you'll see that he just bullied his way out. Angel of Empire, you can make a case that he was not going to win the race, maybe not, but you're taking away his stride and momentum.
He got bumped late.
Right. But if you watch Irad closely, he's leaning to the right. He's making no attempt. He's hitting left-handed, but he's leaning and he's pulling the reins to the right. So he's actually going out of his way to herd Angel of Empire, who loses his momentum. And it was, to me, dirty race riding and clearly warrant a takedown. I'm not a rider, But I'm not the only guy that thought it was a takedown. I was told and then heard afterwards, you had the two, Richard Migliore
Yep.
and Gary Stevens, both riders for many, many years. Let them make the judgment as riders. I'm just a handicapper, okay? And my opinion to me is okay, but theirs I respect because they did the job.
Yes.
Tom Amos was the trainer on the set. All three were mystified that they didn't take.
And it was wonderful that they had the courage to do it. I mean, and to say what they said. Really.
I mean, you talk about Gary Stevens, Hall of Fame rider that has been in close quarters. I would have loved to have Cordero up there too. It was crazy that these stewards. It was a travesty, in my opinion. Okay. And I must say that, Irad Ortiz, right? I respect him as a rider, but I don't respect him on how he rides. And one day, the way he's riding, if they don't set him down and teach him a lesson, there's going to be a something that's going to happen on the racetrack.
There's one last thing before we end this segment, and that is, I don't understand we inquire, we let it stand, and then we give a jockey days for careless riding. What the hell is that? That makes absolutely no sense to me.
I mean, did he? I mean, first of all,
no, that's an option. Some people were calling for that. Some people were saying, "Okay, well, just give him days."
It's a contradiction. Like, give him days. Well,
for what?
For what? Well, give him days. They should take him down and then give him days. I mean, I can't believe
but that exists.
I know it's completely nuts. They got to make a change. Heiss is doing their job. We got to deal with the late money in the pools. We got to deal with these stewards because it's not good for the game.
You know what I want to say, Michael? We started the show with a video here. Howard Beale was a horse player.
Right.
And that's why he's mad as hell.
Yeah, and mad as hell, and we're not the only ones mad as hell. Walk the grandstand here one day with us and see how many people are mad as hell.
Well, that's going to bring us to the end of this show. We are brought to you by Wizard RacingSports.com, and we really thank you for joining us. If you have any questions or comments, please add them to our YouTube site, and we appreciate it. So we will see you next week.